I hate bottle episodes. They're wall-to-wall facial expression and emotional nuance. I might as well sit in the corner with a bucket on my head.
Welcome to Bottle Episodes, a podcast where we discuss very special episodes of TV shows that focus their action on a single primary location. I'm your host, CJ Ariano, and I'm here with Courtney Jones.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Courtney. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, CJ?
Great. I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this.
I'm so excited to do this.
Courtney and I met in advanced fiction writing.
Exactly.
In Columbia College, Chicago in 2007. So
Whoa.
13 years ago. 13 years of friendship.
13 full years of excellent friendship.
Of TV geek glory.
Absolutely.
And today we are discussing an episode of Community.
Yes.
This episode of Bottle Episodes was bound to come sooner or later, so it might as well come on the sooner side. It's called Cooperative Calligraphy. Air date November 11th, 2010. The plot synopsis, courtesy of Hulu, is it's a lockdown in the study room when Annie's purple pen goes missing and she suspects a member of the group took it. The bottle of the week is Greendale Community College's study room. Courtney, do you love or hate Community?
I love Community.
Okay.
I
Cards on the table.
Love Community. I am utterly sincere about most things, but my love for this show is overwhelming. I have to say, this episode of television, I think, not only for me, but for like a lot of people, was putting a name to something that we didn't recognize or know as a convention. Because when you're just growing up watching TV, I'm someone who's very experiential. I just enjoy watching and enjoying. I wasn't thinking too hard all the time about what I was watching. And I had never noticed that there were certain episodes that just took place in one locked location. And I never thought about it or the functional reasons behind that. So this was the first time I knew what a bottle episode was because they lampshaded it. Yeah. This was the very first time.
Like that you'd ever heard that term?
That I'd ever heard that term. And I was somebody, and I consider myself somebody who is TV literate. Like, I enjoy television. I enjoy knowing the behind the scenes. I enjoy knowing why certain decisions are made. And for whatever reason, I had never come across the phrase bottle episode. So this was the first time I had ever heard that. And ever since then, I could identify it quickly.
Yeah.
Thank
you, Abed.
Thank you, Abed.
Yes. Abed makes a bunch of meta-type references about the situation that they're in. Being a bottle episode come to life. And I love that even though his mind is marinated in pop culture and television, that he grouses at it or he's grumbling at it. He doesn't want to be in a bottle episode.
Yeah.
He hates bottle episodes because it's all emotion or facial emotions and
like,
nuance.
He's like, it's all wall-to-wall facial nuance and emotions.
Right.
I might as well be sitting in a corner with a bucket over my head.
Classically and perfectly stated.
Exactly.
Abed. I hate emotion as well.
I'm down with emotions.
Boo.
Boo.
So I guess we can just go plot beat by plot beat, relatively speaking, and sort of investigate how successful of a bottle episode this was or wasn't. I think it's interesting that the situation that traps them in a bottle is self-imposed.
Right.
I think that's unique for like a bottle episode scenario. Usually, even though Jeff and Abed sort of describe it as being on lockdown. It's self-imposed lockdown. They could easily leave at any time.
They could have. In fact, I love that there's very clearly an incentive for them to not be in that room. Dean Pelton shows up holding a puppy at the very beginning of the episode. And he's like, come on down to the puppy parade. And by this time in the show, you are comfortable with them doing these premises get big and explosive and exciting. And so you're thinking, something's going to go down at the puppy parade. And no, it takes a left turn. And suddenly they are trapped in that room. And again, like you said, it is self-imposed. It's really definitely about their relationships and emotional nuance. Sorry, Abed. But it's really funny that they have decided to make this the crux of their bottle episode.
That's such a good point. I hadn't realized after seeing this episode, I think 4 or 5 times and just rewatching it, an hour ago, that the script tricks you into thinking that this is going to be about, this is a puppy parade episode.
Exactly. Weird. This is a weird choice.
Right.
What sort of genre cliche are they going to run into now? They're going to this puppy parade, right?
Yes. So you're kind of wanting them to get to the action in the same way that the characters are wanting to get to the action. I love that. I wrote in my notes, maybe hyperbolically, the puppy parade represents freedom. But I love that if you trap a mouse in a box, you have to put the cheese on the other side of it.
Exactly.
And so I think they do it very well. And this is what makes Community so unique, is that because we're about a season and a half in now, that a puppy parade, which is like that aw cute factor, is so important to this show.
Right.
That you just sort of understand that this is the language that this show traffics in.
Right.
Right. We're going to count these as stakes. And I think that that's what gives a text a unique point of view.
Exactly.
It's important to the characters. Here's why. And so therefore it's important to us, the viewers.
Exactly. And what I enjoy really is that they make so many false starts to leave in that opening, in that cold open, right? So they keep kind of dismissing Annie's feelings around this purple pen. They try to leave multiple times, and then there is a literal shriek. Annie shrieks so loud, and from like the depth of her soul, it feels like about this pen that they can't ignore it. And I thought that was really funny.
You know what I love? That shriek and their stunned reaction to it is the out for the cold open.
Exactly.
That you don't need some kind of like added button after that. Like you don't need some kind of like, wow, da 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 da. Like it's just the shriek, and I think that is perfect.
There's no quip. There's no quip to follow it. They just immediately smash to the intro, and I love it so much.
I also think that Community does an excellent job, yes, at all this meta stuff. We're watching a TV show. We're watching a piece of fiction. Of course, like Dan Harmon is just excellent at that metatextual stuff. And also, I don't know if relatable is the right word, but we'll say relatable. I think that in an ensemble or in a group of friends, there is always that one who's sort of just glossed over or steamrolled over or like, oh, okay, you're here and sometimes just like a warm body and we're not really going to give you the time of day. And so I sort of like felt it, whether it was like sympathy or empathy, this notion of Annie really having to pump the brakes and saying it's not just a pen. This happened
so much to me, and it's important, as ridiculous as it is. This is very important to me, and you keep brushing it aside, and I cannot take it anymore.
I think that in general, that is like what Community is so excellent at doing is really paralleling the high and the low, right? Or like the relatable sitcom feels with the Jeff Winger-esque or Abed-esque, like, I'm better at this bird's eye view.
Exactly. That heightened reality. They get to that heightened reality really quickly and really easily, but they also bring it down to the personal in a way that I find really interesting.
Right.
And I love that for Annie, her whole circumstance is that she constantly feels like she's the nice one. She's so nice. It's like her and Shirley are the two nice characters, right? So Annie, to have this moment of, no, I'm going to assert myself. I'm going to let you know that this is a problem. And so it already sets it up for this emotional story to take place. This is a story about trust. This is a story about how do we actually trust and believe in each other? Do we believe each other when we say no one has taken this pen? And then they, of course, go to the extreme of like extreme paranoia. This is jumping ahead a little bit, but we're going to strip down to our underwear to try to find out who has this pen. And along the way, all of these things are revealed. We learn about how imperfect they all are and all the secrets that they are actually keeping for each other. All this over a pen, all of it.
I think it's extremely brilliant. And I think that it is a really solid exploration of this notion of trust between friends, violation among friends, right? Like boundaries.
Yeah.
It's a genuine exploration. It really is. That word gets tossed around a lot. Like, what does it mean to explore something?
Right.
I think it is explored on all sides. I do have some more specific thoughts about how they resolve this.
Okay.
In general, I like it, but we'll get there.
Okay, yeah.
Of course, I'm just jotting down like every line of dialogue. The one-liners are so on point here.
They are. Zingers left and right.
I remember this from the first time I saw it. I remember like logging this line of dialogue in my brain and then just thinking about it for the next week when Troy says, have you ever gone to a puppy parade halfway through? It is pointless. Troy's Troy's a completist.
He really is. He wants the whole puppy parade experience. And you know what? God love him for that. He wants what he wants. And what he wants is puppies on parade.
He's so single, just like all the best sitcom characters. He's so single-minded.
He really
without
is.
being one note.
Exactly. He shows incredible nuance in this, which is such a weird thing to think about for someone who comes across as so, kind of childlike and innocent, right? And I love that it's very clear whose motivations are to get to that puppy parade, that very simple, easy goal for them to accomplish versus everyone else who seems kind of nebulous. It's really interesting which characters are kind of like, I'm just going to disappear into the ether, or I'm photographing my grandmother's hands, which is such a weird thing for Britta to say.
Was that in this episode?
That is
I
in
missed
this
it.
episode,
okay.
yeah. So she's like, so her excuse for needing to get out of the room is to photograph her grandmother's hands. Meanwhile, Jeff Winger has this date with, what is it, a cat she's going to date?
He's going to date a catch or catch a date.
Right.
I like that. That is antimetabole is a rhetorical device of ABBA. And of course it gets like a groan from everybody.
Naturally, as well it should. He deserved that groan. But yeah, and then, I think that Pierce was going to the puppy parade, but he's in the wheelchair because there'd been some incident, I think, in the previous episode.
Yeah, I was struggling to remember because it's been a hot minute since I've binged it all the way through. So I was like, oh, this is like leftover from what had just happened maybe on Halloween. Some episode.
Yeah, it's really crazy because there are so many high concept things that happened in the show. Sometimes you're like, did this happen in Community?
Right.
Or am I making that up? Or was this from like a sci-fi movie I watched 10 years ago? Like, you don't always know, but I think he was jumping on the trampoline with Troy and I think it was Jeff, whatever, it's not that important, but he's in a wheelchair and he's trying to get to this puppy parade. And again, bottle episodes are an opportunity to explore character. And he has this line where he's like, yeah, I outbid 2 hospitals for this wheelchair. And it's like, well, that gets to the crux of his character very quickly.
Yes.
Like, he wants to show off this ridiculous wheelchair and he doesn't care how he did it.
Every line, really, every moment in this episode. I can't say that's always true for a Community episode, but in this particular one, every moment is a character moment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's brilliant. I will say on like the goal side of things, in terms of, especially in a bottle episode, the writer wants to make sure that everyone should want something, even if it's a cookie, is like the classic aphorism.
Right.
I think that Pierce is a little light on it. He's just sort of like color commentary, which is fine because Pierce is color commentary.
Right, that's his whole job, the whole show, yeah.
Shirley doesn't have an immediate want, but it comes clear that her want, I guess if you could phrase it that way, is to conceal, spoiler alert, that she has a pregnancy test.
Right. You go, girl.
You know, girl.
You know, girl.
I thought that was really clever. Yeah, Britta. This is what I was going to say about Britta and what I wrote in my notes in general, which is that I've mentioned this to you. I have trouble with Britta and Jeff as characters, generally speaking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I think Britta got off to a rocky start. I think that the writers struggled to find her place.
Okay.
To write her a certain way, to give her like a comic game or a comic premise, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because she was there to be Jeff's love interest.
Right.
And of course they get all meta about it and they drop this obligatory Sam and Diane reference.
Right.
But she is there to be the love interest.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think, they had to decide, well, who is she? And sometimes sitcom characters are slow to get developed and they turn into amazing characters, like Kelly, famously from The Office.
Fair, yeah.
She gets like a complete psychological makeover midway through season 2 and it's brilliant. So I won't fault the show just for being slow to discover who she is.
Yeah.
But I think just for me personally, I don't know what it is, that the like white girl trying too hard to be woke character just always came off as like not the most natural.
Really?
I don't know. I never 100% bought it.
Okay.
Maybe it's just me and like my personal taste and preferences.
No, yeah.
But I always felt that it was, I could see like the writer's hand at work, which is silly because it's a very meta show. So you're seeing the writer's hand constantly.
Right. He's constantly showing that hand.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe it's just a matter of her character or that comic bit of woke white girl would have more comedic mileage today, I think.
I think so too. I guess I feel like for me, I was comfortable with the fact that they kind of set Britta up to start as the love interest and then veered away, and made her, to me, it felt like more like a person. Like she felt less like I'm this goal that you're trying to attain. I'm the carrot that will make you a better man, Jeff Winger. I enjoyed the fact that she went in this sort of zany, weird kind of route, because I feel like the love object is usually very boring and one note and is just kind of there to be beautiful and a carrot at the end of a moral stick of some
Attainable,
kind.
unattainable, what have you.
Right,
but
exactly.
They're an object. Yeah.
And what's interesting about this episode is there are moments where you kind of get the understanding that Britta and Jeff are sleeping together, but then you also weirdly, randomly get a glimpse of Jeff and Annie together. There's these subtle moments. I don't know that it was intentional or not, whether or not they were trying to build up to something at that point, but there are these occasional moments where he will smile at her, and I know this is a Community joke where they say you can cut together any two characters looking at each other and making it very meaningful and call that a ship or whatever. But at some point, the show did decide that it wanted Jeff and Annie together, and there's a couple of moments in this episode where you can see him getting snippy with her, or you can see him being frustrated by the situation. They all are, but him in a really off-putting, crazy kind of way, especially when he gets accused of stealing the pen. You're like, why are you having this reaction like this, dude? But then there's a moment at the end of the episode where they've made the decision to kind of trust in each other, and he makes direct eye contact with her in a way that is very, very warm, and warm in a way that's kind of like, okay, I did good. I did right by you.
Yeah.
And it just feels like there are a lot of character arcs and branches that come off of this specific episode as a result of them working through whatever issues they're finding in their relationship.
Overall, I did love this episode as like a, not to sound too glib or slight, but a team building exercise.
Absolutely.
Really.
Yeah, no, it does feel like a team building episode. And it's really funny that, they actually had to tear apart the study room by the end of it to get to where they needed to be.
I guess that's jumping ahead. Is there anything else in Act 1 that you wanted to discuss?
I just like everybody's acknowledgement, just the open acknowledgement that this is stupid.
Yes.
It's very clear everybody has made that choice. They're like, no, this is dumb. We don't need to do this, but it seems like one of us is in distress.
Yes.
Let's go for it.
I think I love when sitcom episodes play with the idea of stakes.
Yeah.
Just on that one element of this is stupid, we don't need to do this.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Friends episode, the one where everybody finds out.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I listened to the audio commentary of that episode where the writers were like, there are no stakes aside from, everyone finding out Monica and Chandler's secret.
Right.
But that there's no reason that the characters need to behave like that.
True.
But
yeah.
to me, that and the lesson is like, one, if it's important to the characters, it's important to us,
right,
as long as you sell us on that.
Absolutely.
And two, sometimes no stakes are what make it funny.
Yes, correct. And that's a good point. So long as we, as the audience, wow, that's a writing tip for you cool kids out there. So long as it matters to the characters and we can sell it convincing, it matters to us. That is absolutely the truth of this episode, because where else would you get away with this?
Right.
Where else would you get away with it?
Right. And I think that's something that is distinctly unique to comedy.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And we do have to comment on the fact that in this first act here that we do actually see the pen get stolen. This was a huge mind-blowing thing that happened.
Here's the thing. I was on the fan wiki of this episode, and then so I saw that in the trivia section.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, you see the pen get stolen. And then when I watched the episode, I missed it.
Yeah, it's so quick. You don't see it until someone's pointed it out to you, and then you have to still go back and find it again.
Yeah.
I remember the day I found out that you actually see the pen get stolen, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, it was after the episode had aired, and I'm like, there's no way anyone would have seen that. Yeah. How did you see that?
No, of course, right? Because it really is just, blanket spoiler alert for this whole thing. We're assuming that you've seen the episode. That's how this podcast works.
Exactly.
You only see the monkey's arm.
Right. Really. It's just his little hand reaches up, he grabs the pen, and then that's that. And you're so busy focusing on everybody else in the episode
Right.
that you're not paying attention. But again, the show has done that before. There was that one episode where something was going on with Abed and he was entirely in the background of the episode and you didn't notice it, right? So the show has fun with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so seeing Annie's boobs steal the pen, if you missed it, don't feel bad.
There's a screenshot on the wiki.
Exactly.
Okay, so Pierce accusing Troy is ugly.
It is horrible.
For sure.
It is so bad.
Yeah.
It is so bad. I think what's really interesting about that whole section where they're like interrogating each other and emptying backpacks and all that kind of stuff, there's a moment where Britta goes, you know, are we really going to accuse Abed of this? He's our innocent. And all I could feel was like, this is Troy Barnes' erasure.
This is Troy Barnes' erasure. Yes.
Of all the people in that room, Troy Barnes
the innocent.
is the least likely to steal that pen. I love that he even goes, I don't even like pens. Like, I don't even have my own. I'm like, what a ridiculous thing to say. And yet it's the truth. And you believe it coming out of his mouth.
100%. And also in the face of Pierce's ugly race-based comments, I think that Troy's reaction was so like delicious, which is that, okay, first Jeff says, yeah, of course we would accuse Troy in 1856, which I thought was tone deaf.
Right, totally.
And would not be a line written in 2020.
Correct.
It's dating itself, 2010. But then Troy says, 1856, what if it's a ghost? And I love that the audience just tracks with that.
Yes, of course.
I love when you can just like pull the viewer to be like, you got this character's logic, right? 1856, Victorian, ghosts.
Clearly it's a ghost, right?
I thought that was beautiful.
So
beautiful.
good. So good.
So the accusations pile on.
Yes.
And then Abed begins to suspect that this is a bottle episode and he doesn't like it at all.
Right.
And then when I like that the way another writerly thing is, okay, how do you get characters to have buy-in into the situation, especially when up at the top they're saying it's stupid?
Right.
And I loved the pettiness of this group. This group reminds me a lot of the Avengers, or maybe when the Avengers first started out, which is everyone's really petty.
Right, so petty, so petty, and so steeped in their own point of view to the point where to challenge that point of view really, really sets them off.
Right. So that's what it is that grants them buy-in, is that they get accused, and that's all they have to do to be like, wait a minute, I didn't steal the pen. Now I'm interested. Now I'm invested in this.
And like for different reasons, right? Like Britta gets really cheesed because they're asking her to open her backpack and she goes, you know, it's
freedom
not
of information or Patriot Act.
Right. Yes. She's like, she immediately goes to that high level 1984 style thinking. And I think she says the line, bend and spread for the government or whatever. And Jeff is like, are they going to make love to us? And it's just zingers left and right, but also,
and well, you can't skip talking about Troy Barnes' erasure.
Exactly,
him saying, "Do they find thoughts in our butts?" I knew I should have read that book.
Of course, that's the way you get Troy Barnes interested in anything, is it's about butts. But so for Britta, it's, you know, having to open her bag and reveal, you know, what is inside of her bag. And that prompts her to be like, oh, if I'm going to suffer, the rest of you are going to suffer. And then for Jeff, it's being accused, like he's the leader of the group. His morality is unimpeachable, or they just at least try to act that way. And when they accuse him, he then is like, now we're tearing the room apart. It's over. Abed gets upset when the book is opened and they discover does
he get upset or does... I'm forgetting how he reacts when they find out.
He does get upset.
Okay,
he does, because he says, you know, he has this whole, I'm going to give a sarcastic speech and then sarcastic speech over, because everyone in the room finds out that he is tracking the women's periods, which is another like unbelievable reveal in this episode where you're
another violation.
What is going on with these people?
And
They're
I think
all
that
terrible.
I think that it's treated appropriately how much of a violation it is.
It really is. It really, really is. Everybody freaks out. And then, you know, Troy doesn't ever really seem to get that upset, except that maybe they're not listening to him when he decides that a ghost did it. They're not taking him seriously. And then, of course, they all turn on Annie when they discover that she potentially could be the one who stole the pen, when that realization starts to come around. So it's just really interesting how they hit all of these character points within this episode.
Right.
We see that, Abed is not great at connecting with people, and that led him to start tracking women's cycles. Britta doesn't want her civil liberties messed with, and really she just probably doesn't want anybody to find out that she has like 6 condoms in her bag, which is not a big deal by any stretch of the imagination.
Ooh,
condoms. And then, Shirley, of course, has a huge secret, which in my opinion feels like one of the bigger secrets.
Yeah.
That, she has had this one-off.
And we know it's Chang.
We know it's Chang. That happened. Oh, good Lord. God help you, girl. Just because Chang is so nuts. That man is crazy. But yeah, she's had this one off with Chang, but also she's got this intense family situation where she had a husband who ran off and was married to another woman. And she and Britta have like a really real fight that hits in a way that I don't think I remembered being as intense as it was. It was a really intense fight between Britta and Shirley. And the fact that this show can get to that note with a premise that's, we're fighting over a pen, but this is really about trust. It's really about our friendship. It's really about how far we have come from just being a bunch of people who sit together and study to we're basically a family. At this point, we're basically a family. Only your family can really cut at you the way that Shirley and Britta do in this episode.
And I think it's so earned. Sometimes I think shows do that team building stuff too early, or say like, we've been through so much. I'm like, you've been through like 3 adventures, right? But I think we're a season and a half in.
Yeah.
They went through a paintball massacre together.
Britta and Jeff have been together.
There's a history.
Troy and Abed are definitely the closest of the close. And then, of course, we still have Pierce. This is in his spiral of he's feeling like the most alienated member, and rightfully so, for a lot of real reasons. He's a racist. He's misogynistic. He's just completely dismissive of Jeff in any way, shape, or form. He's not a pleasant person to be around. So, of course, they're not going to spend that much time with him. So that's why we see him so shoved off to the side in this particular episode.
Right. Until he gets accused.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord.
I mean, it's a beautifully gross sight gag when they cut off his casts.
Yeah. Oh, God. And everybody's just like, oh, gross.
That's fucking nasty. But like beautifully nasty.
Right.
Like,
it's well done.
And well done.
And then you also feel like really bad for him because they've cut off his cat. Like,
that's right.
It feels really low. And there's a point at which in this episode, and they all are just sitting together kind of with their head in their hands. And it just, you feel the gravity of what has occurred in this room. This is, I think...
Yeah, they've torn each other apart.
Literally torn each other apart. They tore off his cast. They tore off their clothes. You feel it. They've torn apart the room. I feel like this is one of the episodes that has the most gravity to it without realizing necessarily that's where you're going to go in this episode.
I will say, especially since we've brought up this moment of Jeff tearing apart the room. They all eventually tear up the room, but he's the one that kind of gets that physical destruction of the set started. I thought that moment was maybe like inappropriately dark. I'm not usually one to be oversensitive to tonal changes. Sometimes like my peers will say like, I thought tone was all over the place, right? When we watch a movie or TV show, and I'm like, no, I was fine with it.
Yeah.
This one, I did kind of, I thought it was a little too like dark and maybe like robbing us of some of the fun of the situation, maybe. And I think I will lay that not at the feet of the writers, because I thought that it was appropriate enough to do at that time when they did it.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to lay this at the feet. I don't really like, or I struggle with, what's Jeff Winger's real name? Joel McHale's performance at times.
Yeah.
One, I never can tell if I'm struggling with the Jeff Winger character or if I'm really just struggling with Joel McHale's performance. I really think it's his performance, because I think I can buy this idea that it's this guy who's the begrudging leader of this group of misfits, and he has like a dark side to him, but he'll come through in the end. He's a little bit of like a Han Solo and a Luke Skywalker and a Jack Shepherd all rolled into one. I simply, and I do say this with respect because I like Joel McHale's charm.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think he has like the depth or nuance as a performer to
Okay.
pull that off.
Okay.
And so when he's like going all caveman on the books and stuff, you know, that's kind of like one of many cringeworthy. I cringe. I was like, oh.
I don't know. I think what I like is the instability of the character,
Sure.
and they're all very unstable. I just find it really interesting that he always tries to play everything at like a 2. Like, I'm real cool. I don't have a lot of emotion about all these sorts
I don't
of
mind
things.
him.
Yeah, I don't mind him when he's doing that either. But for me, that always felt like a facade anyway for this character, right? So for him to suddenly be pulled in because this group of misfits, this group of people that, let's face it, he kind of feels he's above.
Yes.
Or at least tries to pretend like he's above, even though he's clearly growing in his feelings for this group of people. For them to accuse him,
Right.
for me, it makes sense that it would weirdly like set him off randomly. I don't know about the execution of it. I don't know
Yes.
about how he's actually doing it. And it could have been played a little bit more. I think maybe you're right. At that moment, it could have been played a little bit more for comedy than it was.
I think so. And I think I definitely agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah.
In terms of just whatever you want to call it, the text, the story, the design. I buy the Jeff Winger character on that level. So I think it is just a performance issue for me.
Okay.
That's all.
That's all. No, I totally, I definitely see where you're coming from. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I like that it gets the ball rolling, though. I like that it heads us down that path of like, we're here now. We're all starting to lose it. Like, let's just keep it moving, you know? But I really appreciate the fact that when he went in, he went in whole hog.
On the situation? Yes, right. Like, we're on lockdown. We're doing this.
Right. It's over. We're just doing this now. But yeah, I feel like when they get to the point where they're actually stripping down their clothes, and Abed's logic is, no, we're doing this wrong. We need to do opposite genders either side, and everybody shake at the same time to make sure nothing falls out. I thought that was really, really well done. And I do like the tables being turned a little bit where it's all the men who come out in their underwear as opposed to any other show,
right? Which
would have made the women show up and try to.
Well, I mean, pun not intended. Yeah. Tables being turned.
Listen, intended.
Turn because they turn the tables.
Not intended, but also I'm proud of it.
Bing.
I'll keep it.
I will. Okay, one final criticism about the show in general, and then I'll be back in positive land.
No, let's do this.
And I feel like I've mentioned this to you before as well. So the bottle of the week is the study room.
Yes.
Right. And I always want to at least talk about on this show, like just what the bottle is usually like a standing set.
Yeah.
Right. I hate the standing set on this show.
Oh, really?
I do. I hate the study room.
Interesting.
I used to really just not care for the visual aspect of this show.
Okay.
Like, I thought that maybe I hate this like panel approach. What I mean by panel is like, you know, like Match Game, or like Snatch Game on RuPaul's Drag Race, where it's just like a panel of people sitting. Right. Part of me thinks that's intentional. Yeah. Like that it's meant to look like when they're just sitting at that study table, that it's just like a panel of people.
Right, because it's always two people in a shot.
Two people.
Unless it's Chevy or Joel.
Right.
No, because Chevy sits next to...
Do they sit in the same place every time?
He sits next to Troy. Yeah, he sits next to...
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So, yes. Do I think that this look is intentional? I do. Do I think it's always effective? I don't. I think it looks monotonous, and I think it definitely like plays to like the low budget aspect of the show in a way that I don't always like. Okay. And so, I used to think it was a cinematography issue. I think it's a production design issue where like I think that a good standing set gives the performers levels, and it gives the director the opportunity to block shots in new and like various ways. And I would draw a contrast between this and like another low budget show for the time, which was Buffy. Okay. They had, yes or no on Buffy?
I've watched a few
somewhat
episodes
familiar.
of
No, that's
Buffy.
okay.
Buffy, please don't take away my TV card.
No,
everybody.
not at all. Not at all. I also think that it's very outdated at this point, and I'll just give you 10 Gateway episodes, and we'll just leave it at that. But Buffy's set, also in a library, or, you know, like a study area type thing. It's comparable.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of their scenes there. That was kind of like the de facto headquarters. And there was like this nice like upper level that Giles would always stand at.
Right.
And there was like the table. Sometimes they would stand at the counter. Like, give everyone options. And this set does not do that.
Right.
And I just always, sometimes like the script will feel really funny and the performances are really funny. And then I just like, my eyes glaze over. Sometimes because
visually,
it's so honest, right?
Yeah.
That being said, so I loved in this episode when they're standing, they're turning the tables, they're tearing it up. I'm like, yes, tear this set up.
Don't come back
Don't come back. Well, I do love to flash forward to the end when they just leave. I'm like, that is so this group. They're so self-centered.
Or just like, what a weird like thing to note at the end where Abed calls him an unmiraculous son of a bitch. I'm like, what does that even mean? Dean Pelton is like, what? He's offended, but he doesn't know why. And I'm like, I'm with you, buddy. I don't understand either. Well, I guess I had two thoughts about that. I guess I kind of like, I can think of only one other show right now anyway, where it's like they're all kind of sitting around a table, and I'm thinking about like, oh God, forgive me, That 70s Show, where they do the scenes where they're, you know, obviously it's meant to replicate puffing and passing, right? But they do something, at least something visually interesting. I mean, I don't know how many episodes that use that convention in, probably most, if not all. But at least it creates movement, I guess.
It's movement. It's unique. It's purposeful.
Right.
Because, like, the camera's involved in the gag, which, like, even in this, like, post-How I Met Your Mother world, like, sitcoms don't really do that often.
True.
I mean, like, 4-camera sitcoms, right?
Yeah.
And there's coordination. There's choreography.
Right.
It seems really intentional with that or I keep saying intentional. It seems very mindful.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a way that like the panel setup
doesn't do that. Yeah. Because I can't think of any other way that they would be able to do that. Like, so there was another bottle episode of Community that I watch. I kind of like it just for the inventiveness, but it really speaks to, I think, your concerns, which is, I believe it's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, where they did an episode where instead of actually showing us the world of Dungeons and Dragons that they're actually occupying, they focus on the fact that it is a game where you sit around and you talk.
Correct.
And they use sound effects and they use, you know, some little notions to kind of amp up the fact that it's just a group of people sitting around a table.
Yeah.
But I remember, as much as I loved the premise and loved the idea, I didn't love the execution. And I'm wondering if part of that is because of the way the table is set up, is that panel execution where you're just seeing the people in two shot. And is that two shot?
Yeah, two shot.
Two shot, just seeing two people just sitting there. Which is unfortunate because I think it's a really inventive and thoughtful premise.
This is like the Darkest Timeline episode, right?
It's not the Darkest Timeline episode. Okay. It's one about one of the characters, young Neil, Fat Neil, I think is what they were calling him or something like that.
Oh, this is later, right?
This is later.
Season 3 or
maybe season 3.
Okay, yeah.
And so I think after they had seen the success of the Calligraphy episode, they were like, well, let's go ahead and do another bottle episode and this time go for high concept, but this time literally we're all just sitting around the table. The room doesn't get torn up. Nothing really changes. And so that kind of felt like it could have been a successful bottle episode, but it didn't quite get to where it could have been because there was such a limited variety. But my hat is off to them for attempting
100%.
Trying to do something interesting.
Yeah.
As literally people just sitting there, but they are telling a story, and the focus is on how the story is actually working out.
Right. Yeah, it seemed I would love, and maybe this already exists, I don't know. I would love to see Dan Harmon do like an audio production of sorts. Do you think he's done that already?
I feel like he might have, and I might be wrong about this. Well, I know that he has his own podcast.
Okay.
Shout out to Dan Harmon's podcast.
I mean,
but
something
I know that, like,
because he has this like
a radio
love of dialogue.
radio show style
Yeah.
creative endeavor. I don't know.
He just forgets to block sometimes. That's really it. Or like it's the visual element clearly is just, it's not a priority. And and Community is a great example of the fact that you can get when your writing is that like rich,
clever,
and brilliant,
strong,
and like and multidimensional, you can get away with like lack of blocking.
Well, here's the interesting thing about this show. It is a lot of the episodes were directed by the Russo brothers. Which is mind-boggling. Which is funny because, you know, you will see Community characters in Marvel movies.
Like the performers.
Right, yeah. So you'll see, so Dean Pelton was in one. I know Abed was in The Winter Soldier, my much beloved film. And then they actually, in Endgame, you see Shirley and you see Chang. And which is crazy because Ken Jeong is like famous. Like he's like a famous person. And he has like a no dialogue cameo in Endgame. And you're like, oh, I thought he was gonna do stuff. He doesn't do anything. And it's purely because he's with a Community person. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, obviously I'm not gonna say that the Russos don't have any kind of visual flair.
Right.
They absolutely do. I think it's and then of course this was such a low budget show.
Exactly.
100%.
They had $4, and this was another one that was constantly on the verge of being canceled because the audience was small. It was niche. People were very excited to watch the show, but it was the same 4 people over and over again watching the show. So,
and also when you do comedy, like especially single camera comedy, you want to break up the day more on like making sure that like the performance, the timing was right. Let's do that again for this and that, rather than like let's do this theatrical blocking thing. Like maybe that's not a best use of everyone's time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I totally understand why it looks the way it does. Right. It's just like underwhelming sometimes.
Well, what's interesting, I think, too, I think this is really bringing it around to the whole bottle episode aspect of this. You know, bottle episodes are meant to save money, right? Well, this show would have these high concept, crazy, awesome things that were happening. I think of like the Halloween episode where it turned into a zombie episode, like all that kind of stuff. They would do that frequently. And so I think the rest of the show had to be dialogue-y and talky, and perhaps they only had enough money or time to just shoot everything in 2 shots when they were in 100%. Those rooms.
And really, I am just talking about when we're in the study room.
Right, literally in the study room. Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, especially the Goodfellas homage.
Yes.
The Chicken Fingers episode. The camera's swirling around.
Right.
Like, there is a visual literacy to this show.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm just kind of nitpicking on like we're spending so much time in this room. Just put a few chairs.
Exactly.
Put like a lounge section in there. You know, like
make some choices.
Get Bobby Burke in there.
That would be amazing.
Okay. All right. Me ganging up on the production design rant over.
But to get back to the room itself and how it's destroyed at the end, right? I thought it was really interesting as a metaphor for emotional work.
Wow. Okay, let's hear it.
The fact that they could have left that room at any point, right? They could have all just walked away, thrown their hands up in the air and been like, we're done. And they didn't. They didn't do that. Instead, they sat there in their underwear, head in their hands, and just kind of soaked in the fact that they were having a hard time. They were having a hard time trusting each other. The paranoia had reached sky-high levels. And then, of course, we hear Dean Pelton over the intercom being like, the puppy parade is still
reminding
rad.
The mice of the cheese.
Come out here and enjoy yourself. And they could have been the easiest thing in the world for them to all just leave that room. And they didn't do it because they sat down and they did the hard work of working through, even as chaotic and wild as it was for them to work through this paranoia and distrust, they did it anyway. And so when they leave that room behind looking completely destroyed, they did the work and they got to it on the other side as friends, still caring about each other, even though they found out some of each other's darkest secrets.
It felt real. It felt earned. I wasn't like, I don't buy this. Like, what? They're just going to do a group hug at the end of it. You can just feel and see like the exhaustion.
Exactly.
And just like the, we're battle ravaged.
Right.
Almost. Right?
Exactly.
We're tired. And I will say this. Another podcast that I listen to, they often use two terms, and I think it's brilliant. These are like Sherlock Holmes related terms. So it's like either Doylean or Watsonian.
Oh.
So like either you're talking about the text from the author's point of view or in universe.
Interesting.
Right? I'm like, that's so helpful. That's so helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go Watsonian for a second. Okay. So this is a Watsonian observation.
I love it.
Part of me thinks that Jeff gives his moving speech about how a ghost taking the pen is more likely than us taking the pen, one of us taking the pen because we trust each other and we love each other, that sort of thing. Part of me thinks this is still a Jeff Winger manipulation.
I'm cool with that.
Like,
I agree. I can
in my
agree.
mind canon, I almost think that's the case. Like that he believes it, but it's a convenient thing to say at that time because he wants this to be over and he wants to go on that date.
Interesting. So from a
I guess Doylean. I don't know.
Okay, so from a Doylean perspective, I am of the opinion that the show holds that they are right to trust each other and love each other because ultimately none of them took the pen.
Well, yes.
The show is
objectively,
saying,
we know that that's correct.
Right. So the show is saying these people, I think, made a good choice to do this.
Yes.
To trust each other.
I think that's what's so beautiful, right? Like they don't know.
They don't
for certain,
know,
but we
right?
do.
But we do.
Right.
We as the audience, we definitely do. And then too, I think that, you know, like they ultimately ride off into the sunset, having made this choice to care about each other. And I think that that is a beautiful thing and a smart thing to do, especially because the show needed a test. The show needed to test the loyalties and the trust of these people who are from such different backgrounds and circumstances and worldviews. It has to have that check every so often because otherwise, like you said, we as the audience might not continue to believe their closeness. So to have this be that moment, to have them say, okay, we're going to trust each other, and then the show itself saying they're correct to do this, it ties it all together.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. No, I don't disagree. And I do agree. I think that they responded to the content of Jeff's speech. And I think that he believed it too.
Yeah.
I just think that
but also there's like
his motivation in the moment is
manipulation in there. And then too, like, I think, I'm not sure. I feel like either I read this somewhere or something like that, but essentially Dan Harmon was commenting on the fact that Jeff and Britta at this point they're sleeping together. They're like officially at this point in the show, they're sleeping with each other and they're hiding it from the rest of the group.
Do we know that at this point?
I don't know that they do, but there is that moment where Britta says something to the effect of, don't you usually wear like your turquoise stripy number? And Abed goes,
that's a pretty blatant clue.
Right. Yeah. And Abed even goes, usually?
Yeah, right.
So that's supposed to stick in our mind that, yeah, they're hitting it regularly. So there was this idea that Gwennifer didn't really exist. And it was just...
it was going to be them?
He was making an excuse to get out of there to be with Britta. And Britta was making her dumb excuse.
Her grandmother's hands. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, that's interesting.
But I think that my theory would still hold then.
No, it definitely would hold.
He wants to get out of it so that he and Britta can bump uglies.
He's trying to get out of there.
Well, I should say, since we love Doylean and Watsonian so much, that I should name drop the podcast, which is Lazy Doctor Who.
Wonderful.
I'm just doing this deep dive of Doctor Who podcasts and pretty much loving every single one of them. So
nice.
Thank you, Lazy Doctor Who. Well, we've pretty much reached the end of the episode. Do you have any stray thoughts?
I appreciate that they did actually show us the puppy parade during the credits. Because I was a little bit...
I was fucking dying.
Incensed that we didn't see it. We saw that one puppy in the beginning, and I was like, but where are the rest of them?
Right. My, like, borderline OCD brain when it comes to bottle episodes was like, oh, we went outside of the bottle. But other than that, I loved it. And his name is Jim Rash.
Yes.
Who plays the dean.
I love Jim Rash.
When he booed at the equality and togetherness, the one that's too preachy, even for the dean. I mean, I could listen to him boo all day.
All day
Boo.
long. He's so great. But yeah, it's a great episode of television. I mean, you can say that for many episodes of Community, but this is one of the standouts for sure.
It really is. And going into it, all I remember is the meta aspect. The meta aspect really only gets like 3 nods.
Right.
It's like Abed and then Jeff reiterating, oh, this is a bottle episode.
Right.
It really is one of the strongest bottle episodes I've seen, with or without the cute meta. The meta is just the cherry on top.
Right.
I think that it does everything that a bottle episode can and should do, which is that pressure cooker scenario and really forcing characters to reveal the truth about their relationships.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And, again, I think this became a television literacy moment for a lot of people. A lot of folks did not know what a bottle episode was or how to articulate it. And the show really highlighted, this is what it is. This is how you execute it. Hopefully you'll see more of these done well in other TV shows. So big ups to Dan Harmon.
Well, to close it out, rating-wise, how full does this make your bottle?
Ooh.
This episode, 100% being totally full. 100% is an A+.
100% is an A+. I would give this a 99%. Like, I feel like there's room for growth. That 1%.
You always want to leave that 1%
just
off.
a little room for growth. But I feel like it's one of the best, if not the best, bottle episode I've seen. I think a lot of argument can be made for Breaking Bad, The Fly.
Yes. Which we still haven't gotten to. But
I do feel like this is really up there. It is a tight 21 minutes, which is crazy to me. And they do an awesome job at it.
It's so tight.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're writing down like in a list, like, oh, it's a character moment, and oh, like it's exploring like trust and violation, but then you realize that it's all happening in parallel, and we're still getting like a really robust or comedically robust sitcom episode.
Yeah.
It is so tight.
And you're still laughing. Like, they're even as deep and dark as it gets at some points, you still find yourself laughing at the end, which is impressive. It's a feat.
Agreed. Yeah, I would say 95%. And that 4% is negligible.
Yeah.
it's barely worth discussing. It's just what I'm feeling in my heart.
Right. In your heart right now.
Yeah. 95 is pretty high for me.
That's great.
Yeah, for all the reasons we discussed, it doesn't feel slight. It really feels like we're exploring an ensemble. We're exploring this group and how they function together. And sometimes I think that relationships are even more important to nail in works of fiction than like individual characters.
Yeah.
You really want the viewer to feel like the sum is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
Right? And Community has, the whole impetus underneath the show. It's called Community.
It's literally called Community.
It is about the group. Sometimes
I
struggle with the idea that Jeff is even at the center of the group. Sometimes I wish it were Troy.
Same. Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
But I think in certain ways it's natural or, ironic or fitting or whatever you want to call it, that Jeff, who is the most wanting to keep people at arm's length,
right,
who is the least vulnerable, that he would go on this journey to find community.
Right.
I think that's really beautiful. And I think that this episode is definitely like a milestone in terms of that journey that we're on throughout this 6 seasons in a movie.
6 seasons in a movie?
Story. Yeah. They haven't done a movie.
No, there's no movie.
You think there'll ever be a movie?
I don't think they could ever get Donald Glover to do it.
Yeah. I think it would have to be like a Melissa McCarthy on Gilmore Girls situation, where it's like he's in it for one scene.
Exactly. He's like literally a cameo, and that's that.
Okay, well, do you have anything to plug? Where can we find Courtney Jones?
You can find Courtney Jones at home reading books and drinking tea and hanging out. I don't really have anything to plug. I'm just here for the love of the TV, man.
I love it. Well, you can find me at cjariano.com. This has been Bottle Episodes. If you have an idea for a bottle episode from television history we should cover, or if you're trapped in a single primary location and need to send a distress call, email podcastbottleepisodes@gmail.com. That's podcastbottleepisodes@gmail.com. Till next time.
Bye.